Hi guys. One of the things we went over last week was putting a less space in between your returns. And I talked to you about what will happen at the bottom of the page is that there's a good chance that the paragraphs don't necessarily align unless you have unless you have it locked to your baseline grid. So I'm just going to go through and it's not wrong the way I showed you last week, but there are lots of people that love locking things to the baseline grid. Basically, that means that our last two lines, if I zoom in, means our last two lines instead. So if I have five paragraph breaks on this side and six on this side, there's a very good chance that you will get a little bit of this, even if it's the same, you know, it's basically going to end up like that because there's increments being added on one side that are different on the other sides. So I am just going to take you through something that we use. And it's locked to the baseline grid. So one of the things that I'm going to do with this one is when I'm using using a lock to the baseline grid, sometimes I want this a document to be really tight and very symmetrical and very sort of understanding where I have white breaks and not white breaks. So one of the things I might do with this is I'll start with, let's just start with my body copy. I'm just going to change my style. So I am going to go, where are we here? So we're going to check our sizes. Yeah, those are okay. General, advanced, everything is good there. Indents and spacing. So we're going to go up to our alignment. We're going to change this to left justify. And that is going to go through our entire document. And you can see already on my columns that it's justifying our text. Now, right off the bat, what I will tell you about justification is, and I'm just going to go okay so you can preview my paragraphs. When you have short line lengths like I have, it makes it a little bit harder, meaning that there are going to be places when you look at the text where there's a lot of space in between the words just to justify this. So one of the issues that always comes up with justification is, okay, do we have to go in and fix these things? And the answer is yeah. And then so if it's a 28-page book, it's actually a lot of work. So just for shits and giggles, we're going to do it here just so we have something a little bit different to work with. So I've just changed that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go view, and I'm going to scroll down to grids. I'm going to go show baseline grid. And so all of these horizontal lines are now, that is basically your baseline grid. So then you can determine, where it starts. So you can see that it's starting at the top of the page, but it's giving it a bit of a gap. Really, all you want to do with your baseline grid is you want to start at the top of your columns and go to the bottom of your columns, and then you can work out your measurements for that. So really what we're after is where you see the word dogget here, which I would fix. Again, see, everything is being reshifted, so I don't want to have a single word hanging there, but regardless, we want these lines down here to line up. And when you look at the two columns, we want the lines, you want the baseline of each one to line up, and that's basically aligning to a baseline grid. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go under my preferences, and Anna, you will have to figure out where those are in on your computer. I'm not exactly sure. So if I go to if I go up to preferences, I am going to click on hang on. Sorry, I am going to go up to my preferences, and then I'm going to go down to grids, and it's going to bring up this screen. And so right now I have the grids in light blue. You can change that, so you can go light gray if you like. Sometimes it helps so it doesn't overrun your design necessarily. And then it's going to ask you, where do you want to start your grid? So I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to start at the top of my margin. And I'm going to have increments. Every line will be in 12 points. And that's important for a couple reasons. So when you look at my document now, you can see I have this baseline grid, and it's set at 12. However, what you have to do for a locking to a baseline grid for it to work properly is you can see that none of really what you want to have is the type sitting on your baseline grid. So if I go back into my preferences and I go back to grids, the way to make this work is with this increment, right? So if you have a look over here, here is my 8.2 type over 10. That's the reason why it's not locking to the baseline grid, is because I have increments of 12 here. So if I go in and I change this to 10 and go OK, let's see. So now we have the letting and the baseline grid with the same increments. But you look up here and you go, oh, wait a minute, John, I don't see it really sitting on anything. Not to worry. So to have your lines snap to your baseline grid, you can do it through the panel up here. But really the proper way to do it is to do this in your style sheet. So I'm going to go into body copy, and then we're going to look at indents and spacing. And down here you're going to see align to grid. And I'm going to go all lines. And I'm going to go OK. And then you can see now our lines are sitting on the baseline grid. It's better to do it in your style sheets so that obviously it continues through your entire document and just not on the one column that you're working on. The thing you're going to notice is that yes, my type is locked to this baseline grid. However, using the increments of 10 points, it's not really working with a couple things. So the first thing you're going to notice is that our columns have to be adjusted. So I'm just going to go into my pages on both of my master pages to do them at the same time. And then I'm going to go to my, bring up my margins and columns. And then all I'm simply going to do is on the bottom, you see that it adjusts. So I'm just going to move my adjustments so that it works with my baseline grid. Go OK. And you see it did it on both sides. And now when I go back to my page 5, to my spread, it's now working. And you can sort of see I do have my text box pulled down a little bit further just so these ones show up, but you can see now that they're sitting on that line. So that's the first part. That gives you the main, the main part of it. The other thing that you have to know is that you pretty much have to do it for your entire document. So meaning if I have my subheads, um, those subheads and pull quotes all have to be adjusted. So if we're thinking about increments of 10, you could do, if you keep it divisible by 10, you could have 20. So what you want to try and do is keep your letting relatively, so they all relate. So your pull quotes, your headlines, and your subheads all relate to this, are divisible by 10. So I go to my subheads. So what that means is if I have other style sheets, I have to adjust them. And so you really want to think about this before you start your document. So that means that when I go to my indents and spacing, things like space before and space after have to be thought as increments of 10. So let's just take out, we're going to make the space after 0, which means our subheads are just going to sit one line above the text. However, I still want to keep a space before, but now I've got to figure out how to make that space before work. So all I'm simply going to do here is I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to type in 10 points. And then all that's going to do is give me that extra space up there. So if I go OK, it should adjust it. Let's just see. Subheads. So there you'll see that it's adjusted it in inches. Oh, we also have to make sure the letting is the same. So we're going to go just make sure, oops, we've already made sure that this is 10 points. So we'll just double check, go, okay. Then the basic character value is, 10.5. That needs to change to 10. So now it's changed to 10. So there you can see it's a little bit different. If I wanted more space in there, I could double it up. I could go 20. So once you do that, then the next thing is to look at other areas that maybe are not on the same grid. So when I highlight now my pull quotes, we start running into some issues. So you can do it a couple different ways. You don't necessarily have to have every line up on your baseline grid, but on a document like this, you want to have your first line at least sit on the baseline grid. So I'll go into my pull quotes, and there's a couple things, I'll run over a couple different things. If I just go indents and spacings and I come down to align to grid, I can go first line only. And then if I sort of pull this across, you can see that the first line of the pull quote now will hit one of the baseline grids. Then it'll keep the rest of the letting the way it was. That's fine if you do it that way. If you want to do it perfectly mathematical, then you might have to do something like go up to basic character formats. Here I might change the size of the quote. So let's just go. There's a couple different ways I could do it. So if I wanted it to be really subtle, I could make it 8 point. So as you can see, we have a couple options. So if I simply changed my type and letting to match, that would work. And the fact that the text in this document is book, I could switch the pull quote to bold, and it's also red, so it would still stand out. The other way to do it would be if I go into my style sheets. Where is it here? Sorry, I've got too many things open. Ah, okay. Sorry. Paragraph styles. Okay. Sorry about that. So if I go into pull quote, I'll just bring this over here. I could still make this larger. I mean, I'm certainly not going to make it 11/10. So as I start opening this back up, um, one of the things that I've clicked on here, so if I go to indents and spacing, if you look down here, if I go none, then as you move this pull quote around, it's really not going to line up with anything. However, if you go to a line, first line only, at least what happens is your first line will line up. Now, that being said, the other way to do it, again, is to do is to make it divisible by 10. So if I were to go, let's see, if I go 15, that would mean every second line would line up with the baseline grid. So you can see up here, lines up, doesn't line up, lines up, doesn't line up. So as you go down, if I go like this and I open this back up, okay, I'll go okay. If I click on that and open it up, you'll see. So every second line lines up, which is, I can make that work as well. And so that is basically, as you go through your document now, you'll adjust all of those. And yeah, it is a way of making it a lot tighter. You just have to make sure that you are figuring out all your pull quotes, headlines, everything is sort of divisible by 10. And that can be anything. That could be, if I'm 10/12, then it would be divisible by 12. So yeah, that's how you basically lock these lines to the baseline grid.